Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in today. I'm Billy Mitchell, Vice President of Content and Community and Editor-in-Chief of FedScoop. And it's my pleasure today to be joined by Craig McLuckie, Vice President of R&D for VMware. And Craig is also one of the co-founders of Kubernetes. Craig, it's a pleasure to chat with you. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really well. Thanks so much to have me on.
Absolutely. I'm excited to talk about digital transformation, how it is going in the public sector, especially during this recent time. So I'd like to start, right there with that topic and ask, what are some of the key drivers of digital transformation within the public sector today?
Well, I think public sector, very much like the private sector, is really just looking for opportunities to bring technology in to create, more powerful outcomes, to, fundamentally access technology to achieve their mission in a more efficient, more scalable, sustainable, and secure way. And just like the public sector, they're operating under a constrained budget. So being able to use technology to drive the outcome, to achieve more efficient ways of operating and working towards their mission is going to be incredibly important. And I think what's really driving it behind the scenes is access to new technology in a couple of different areas. Obviously, the cloud has become a thing that's really fundamentally disrupting the way that organizations can access and consume infrastructure technologies. I think SaaS is emerging as a really powerful underpinning for a lot of the systems that are being built. And then increasingly, we're seeing an engagement and interest in open source as a source of new technologies that can really change the way that organizations function.
That's great. And we're having today's conversation in conjunction with VMware's Public Sector Innovation Summit. And one of the themes, we've heard a lot during this time has been application modernization. So I'd like to go there next and ask, what importance does application modernization play in the public sector transformation journey?
I think it's a really great question. And it's funny, a lot of organizations talk about legacy applications. I much prefer to say heritage, because at the end of the day, those applications are what's really driving the outcomes, the mission that you're pursuing today. That's really how you're running your day-to-day life. And so when I think about those applications, there's an opportunity to carry them forwards, to get more out of the technology that's already been deployed and that is already serving you in your mission. And when I think about that modernization process, it's more of a journey than a destination. There's so many options available to organizations that have a portfolio of technology, and really understanding the options, understanding the steps on that journey to create the outcome, to ultimately manage debt, the debt that you've accrued from a technology perspective historically, but also to manage the debt that future you is going to have to deal with looking forwards. And so being very smart and deliberate about that journey, understanding where you are in that journey and what the opportunities are, what the ROI associated with making an investment in technology is really important. And then ultimately, it's also about the people. It always comes back to the people, the skills, the capabilities that you have within your organization to lead you on this journey is so important.
Craig, it's no secret that there's been a big focus on cybersecurity of late with all of the breaches that are occurring in and out of government. So I'm curious to hear, how should public sector organizations think about security in the wake of those recent major breaches?
Well, I think there's a number of different areas that need to really be focused on. Obviously, when we start to look at the challenges associated, with security, I think being able to converge on a more consistent single platform that enables you to really harden it, to institute the controls, to really get your arms around it is incredibly important. I also think that as you start looking at the way that you build applications, as you build new capabilities, as you drive towards new outcomes, it's becoming increasingly important to look at your software supply chain. The software supply chain itself represents something that has to be secured. The software that you're acquiring from vendors, obviously, but increasingly the software that you're building yourself. Do you have good controls around where that software is being sourced? Is it being appropriately scrutinized? And do you really know what you're getting into? And then ultimately, if you step back a little bit, there's technologies that are emerging that are making it easier to achieve that single security posture, being able to converge on obviously a consistent platform, but also to start dealing with things like zero trust, being able to ensure that all of your systems have an intrinsic internal security boundary around them, to be able to start looking at acquiring a set of curated secure content that you can use to build your applications. So it's obviously a challenging time for everyone. And again, skills, have the right people in place to do this, make the right investments now, and then look a little bit to the future as we start to become more sensitive to the supply chain dynamics.
Yeah, I agree. Skills is a very important one moving forward. Thinking about that moving forward and looking ahead a little bit, I'd like to close out our conversation today asking, what do you think agencies should be most excited about in the coming 5 or so years?
Well, I think there's so much wonderful innovation happening right now, whether that's happening in the cloud technologies, whether that's happening in open source technologies, whether that's happening with SaaS technologies. And so knowing that technology that's going to be more intrinsically accessible, more intrinsically available is exciting. But for me, it's really about how do you get your arms around all of it? And there's some really powerful capabilities emerging through technologies like Kubernetes that enable you to start bringing it all together, whether it's your traditional, or what I like to say, heritage applications, whether it's new applications, whether it's common off-the-shelf software applications that you can now bring into and actually deliver on that platform. Having a consistent platform just makes your life so much easier. And I think that's really going to change the way that organizations operate and really be able to start making the transition from ticket-driven IT, where an operator is the primary interface between teams that are actually managing and building applications and the infrastructure outcomes, towards this new API-centric way of looking at the world.
Craig, thank you so much for your time today. It's been quite a pleasure catching up with you, and I hope we can do it again soon.
Thank you so much.